People mock Joe Biden all the time, especially on the left, but also on the right, for all of his kind of kumbaya, like coming together rhetoric. And yeah, Biden has not really unified the country like he said he was going to be, but I think it's great to have a president that tries.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Chris Cuomo Project, coming to you from my digs here at home. If you're listening, that's where I am. If you're watching, you can see that's where I am. Really appreciate you. Please continue to spread the word, subscribe, and follow. Today, very cool guest, Mark Leibovich. Great journalist, really good interviewer, known for long form. But I'm talking to him about a book he has called Thank You for Your Servitude. Not service, servitude. And he's talking all about the game. And that's why I think he's so useful for you guys. And we had a conversation heading into the midterms about what the dynamics were at play and what we were hoping for. And here's the good news. It all came true. Everything we were hoping for came true. And that's going to be a big angle for me going forwards. What really happened in these midterms? Because let me tell you, a lot of my brothers and sisters in the media, and certainly both parties, are ignoring the biggest thing. You. The story of this election, the midterms, was about independent voters, free agents. No party, no tribe, no team, open minds, open hearts, willing to listen, looking at the person, thinking about policy. All of that instead of just party. That's the story. And there's a lot of context to it, and Leibovich is one of the best. So, subscribe, follow, here he is. Don't forget your free agent merch. I don't have it on now. Dragon Hemp, very cool stuff. My buddy started it. No, not an advertiser. I just like him. Dawn Patrol, that's a surfing thing. I don't know, it's my wife's shirt. So, Mark Leibovich, without further ado. Advertisement time, Athletic Greens. Now, I take these every day, and I recommend you do as well. Why? Because not only does it have over 75 of all the right things that you need in your body, and it's a mix, right? Vitamins, minerals, adaptogens. You can look up what those are, but they certainly help build your immune system. Also, probiotic. Very big for me. All in one place, all the blending done. So I don't have to have all these pills and bottles. Cost effective, absolutely. Easy to take, yes. A scoop in the water, drink it, done. Taste is fine. So it's easy. It's less expensive. Okay, and the mix is already done for you, so you know what, you don't have to think about what to take in combination. That's why I like Athletic Greens. Now, here's the good news. You can get a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D, and you can get free 5 packets for travel. Why do I say it like that? Because I travel, and I can't bring the big bag, and it's nice to have the travel packs. In fact, I'm still trying to figure out how to get them without going through this offer. So you can get 5 free travel packs with your first purchase, all right? All you have to do is go to athleticgreens.com/CCP. athleticgreens.com/CCP. And I'm telling you, it's just easier this way. It's more cost effective this way. And all the mixing and science have been done for you. That's why I take Athletic Greens. And that's why I'm proud to have them as one of our sponsors. Advertisement time. I'm talking about Indeed. If you're listening, listen to this. Here I am at home, and this is where I started my business. Business starts at home for a lot of people. You need good services, and this is an important time of year, right? Why? Last quarter, 2022. Here come the holidays. You want to hire, you want to find a job, you need a powerful partner, okay? And you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and have everything in one place. That's why it works for me. 3 million businesses. Okay, so this isn't about me. You can't have that big a footprint and not be delivering a valuable service, all right? Indeed is a great way to hire great talent and to do it fast. And I got a little tip for you, all right? You can start hiring now, and you can get a $75 sponsored job credit. Not bad, right? You can sponsor your job post, and you can go right to Indeed.com and get started. And you'll get this special offer through this show if you do Indeed.com/CCP. Only for a limited time, so try and get in there, all right? $75 credit, Indeed.com/CCP. Very cool. Indeed.com/TCP. I'm saying it thrice because I'm being nice. But also, I think it's worth it. Check it out. You're going to have terms and conditions as always, but if you need to hire, you need Indeed. Mark Leibovich, it's good to have you. Thank you for doing it.
Chris, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Sorry I was stuck in traffic. I was a little late, but here we are.
Don't worry about it. The podcast and the streaming audience, they don't care. They just want good content, and that's what you are. The new book is called Thank You for Your Servitude, a play on Thank You for Your Service. It is very interesting, and I wanted you on for a couple of reasons. One, you're a good interviewer, and I wanted to give people an insight into how that comes to be. And secondly, I like your take on this because it's an analysis for all of you who hopefully will get Thank You for Your Servitude. It's an analysis of why the party fell in line behind Trump. But that's not a new idea, right? All of you know that happened. But what Mark does is he takes a look at not just what the motivation was or the pressure points were, but how main players in the party and then some side figures really took advantage of it. So it's a little bit more of a layered thing. It's not just that Trump was a bully and they were afraid. It's much more complicated than that. In Leibovich's reckoning, very cool. And on the back flap, it says, thank you for your servitude isn't another view from the Oval Office. It's the view from the Trump Hotel. We can check out anytime we want, but only time will tell if we can ever leave. Hotel California reference, very nice. Do you think we can ever leave?
I mean, look, many of us, the majority of us, were never there. I would say the vast majority of people I know, and I suspect many people in our business know, were never there. I think there was a lot of mystery about why people did fall in line with them. And this is what I tried to do here, is not try to out psychoanalyze Donald Trump or out White House intrigue Bob Woodward or Maggie Haberman or anyone like that. I wanted to figure out who are the people who are going to play the game with him? Look, opportunism, as you referenced before, is not a new Washington story. It's not a new politics story. It's not a new story in any sort of powerful business. I would say that the people who are under the spell of him and who continue to be under the spell of him are the biggest story in America right now. Because again, without them, Donald Trump is, he's a guy that we could have ignored, and we did ignore for
Is it a
years.
spell?
I don't know. I think by saying it's a spell, it lets them off the hook to some degree. I think it's a weakness. I think he's someone that people don't really want to take on. Look, I think Donald Trump said to me early on in the process, he said, look, I think I'm going to win this Republican nomination. It was very early on then, but he was the front runner, because I think they're all going to fold. I think these people are weak. I am used to dealing with sort of people or, creatures in the jungle. It's a different jungle. These people up here with me, referring to the debate stage you just got off, are weak. And ultimately, he was right. They all folded.
Any complex situation, and politics is certainly complex, never has a single factor explanation, which of course is the trap in any interview where when somebody asks you for a reason for something, and they're looking for a soundbite most of the time. Podcast is more free form, obviously, but they want you to give like 1-2 things. And usually it's nuanced, it's layered. And one thing led to another thing. And it was more of a dynamic than it was simple cause and effect. And that's certainly the case here because obviously, if you want to simplify it, the reason that they fell in line with Trump was because it was working with the ever-shrinking, more extreme-oriented electorate. That's why. And it is only remarkable because we had never seen guys go all in and outright hostility towards somebody the way Cruz, Rubio, and Lindsey Graham did. These three that... And again, Leibovich, in fairness, I don't know Mark, we've never met, but this is a much more expansive look at something that you've heard about before than I have seen. And if I haven't seen it, you haven't seen it because this is all I do. And for the last 10 months, I've had a lot of time on my hands. So, these three guys went out of their way to get into personal combat with Donald Trump to out-macho him when it seemed like that was the simple metric. Rubio had his moment with he'd be selling watches on 34th Street if he weren't here. Ted Cruz, I believe, weakly and incompletely tried to resurrect his honor for his wife when he was like, keep my wife's name out of your mouth or whatever bullshit he said that didn't really get it done. And Graham, most demonstrably, had made like a Christian play about how morally this guy was going to wind up having to pack light when he died because it was going to be hot where he was going. And he just turned around and is also the most shamelessly willing to explain why he did it. Unlike the other two, who will just kind of spin you out of it. Lindsey Graham would say even to a Leibovich, hey, man, as it says on the back of his jacket, he has him on here, if you don't want to be reelected, you're in the wrong business. And it's as simple as that for Lindsey Graham.
Oh, absolutely. It's relevant. Well, first of all, Lindsey Graham needs a job. He doesn't, if he weren't in the U.S. Senate, one of his colleagues in the Senate said to me, there's no one in this room who needs this job or in the Senate who needs this job more than Lindsey Graham does. He doesn't have a family. He doesn't have really any hobbies. He needs whatever the juice, whatever the craps table is of power, of being in these rooms and these negotiations and these war zones, whatever it is, being in Donald Trump's orbit on the golf course. He gets some real, he's got a twisted story. He's got sort of a twisted mind. And I think he gets a lot of sustenance out of being at the craps table, as he says. A guy like Kevin McCarthy, who you didn't mention, but he wants a job too. Like there's nothing this guy wants more or needs more in life than to be Speaker of the House. It will redeem all of the indignity that he has put himself through and continues to put himself through.
But isn't that enough in politics? At the end of the day, as grotesque as this may appear, grotesque, not in like the horror movie way, but, in the more classical sense, as obvious and ugly as this was, isn't this what politics is? His message was resonating.
Yes. In a lot of cases, it's you need a job.
And it was a classic case of a demagogue, so somebody who got people scared and played on fear that was real and there already, and pointed at a system that all the other guys were part of, every one of them, and said they all are part of what sucks, which Leibovich accurately depicts in here as the swamp, which he says they turned into a gold-plated bathtub, which is a nice play on them actually getting into the water and enjoying it, and gold-plated, obviously good for Trump. And mine was nowhere near as clever. I used to say, they said they were going to drain the swamp, and instead they added the biggest and angriest alligators we've ever seen in our lives to it, because nobody's ever had more people dismissed from an administration than Donald Trump.
No.
And it wasn't political payback or gratuitous. It was that he had guys who were not fit to be around him. And yet here we are, brother. And it is every bit as real right now as it was when Donald Trump was president. Now, what I just said is knocked down by this stat that is floating around, that 20% less of the GOP says they want Trump than when he was president. What do you make of that?
I think it's probably true. I think there is, Trump definitely has eroded somewhat. I think he has a shelf life. I think like anyone that big or even not that big, this is 7 years, right? This is like 7 years into his political run. That's a long time. And look, well more than half of the Republicans that were in Congress or the Senate when he came to Washington have either retired or were voted out or turned on him. There's definitely been some erosion. But what you have is the Republican Party that remains today is just this pure, what is it? What's the kitchen term? I'm not a cook. A reduction, like a fine reduction of Trumpism, where you have some truly awful people. Look, I don't, maybe I shouldn't be that definitive here.
Too late.
Yeah, too late. I said it. Okay. There's not a single person that I know of in the party who will even mildly rebuke this. So this is, to me, a character assassination about every single one of them. And that's the party now. Like there was even 5 years ago, people like after Charlottesville, there were people who would have lined up and, rebuked it.
Have you figured out yet why right / really right or whatever, whatever qualifier you want to put on it, voters are still like, well, he's still better than the rest of them?
I mean, I think there's some of that. I mean, I think, look, the Democrats are vulnerable. Biden's vulnerable. I mean, inflation, the economy makes everyone vulnerable. And, and gives the alternative sort of 40% from the start.
But what does it mean that all of these things that would have killed anybody else in the Republican or Democrat Party can't touch this guy?
I would say it has touched him, but look, shamelessness is a superpower. The guy is not dealing with normal quotients of shame, ability of being embarrassed. If I were caught in like lie after lie after lie, or, potential criminality, I mean, I'd be under the bed. I'd be
But that's
embarrassed.
because you're ruled by a club.
I'm ruled by a club.
You're
okay?
ruled by a club that has, is there hypocrisy? I'm the wrong guy to ask about it right now. But yes, but you get judged by people who can take you out of your ability to do what you're doing. And Trump's ability to be taken out is by this base of voters who, it seems, I mean, maybe the answer to my question is that they've said, yeah, okay, all of these things are terrible, but two things you guys aren't understanding. One, we do not accept the judgment of Donald Trump from people who we think are his equal in terms of skankiness. And two, these are rules of a game that we now reject. We reject the game. Now, the left doesn't reject the game. I mean, my brother is evidence of that. There are rules in the Democratic Party. And if you offend those rules, you will get removed by Democrats. So that's not his rule with that base, and his team can have no rules because he is the head of the team, and they are afraid of the base.
They are afraid of the base. It's been bad for Republicans. If you look at, Trump being the first Republican or the first president in 100 years to lose the White House, the House, and the Senate in one term. He coughed up 2 Senate seats in Georgia. I mean, we've all lived through this. Lost the House in 18.
He runs, and everybody else stays out of the primary. Yes or no?
I don't think everybody else, but I think he wins. I think there's no question he wins.
Chris Christie can't beat him.
No.
Ron DeSantis can't beat him.
Nope. I don't think so. I mean, I think DeSantis, obviously he's got a little bit of a mystique now. DeSantis is a socially awkward dude. People who served with him in Congress, people who, Republican governors, I mean, Republicans, he doesn't wear well. He doesn't really come off well. I mean, Trump tends to make mincemeat out of guys like that. I don't see that as a good match for DeSantis. I think likely, given that he's an opportunist like everyone else, would probably try to be his vice president, and perhaps could be if he, wins some delegates.
Do you think Trump runs?
Yeah, why not? I mean, I think he says he is. He seems to be indicating that he is. And, he seems to think that it makes him more bulletproof than he already is.
I had put up a theory that Paul Manafort and a bunch of these other guys who are still close, or whatever that word means, to the former president, smackdown, which is he enters, he gets all of the energy, and then he abdicates and appoints who it will be. He'll say DeSantis should be the guy. And then he's a kingmaker, and he builds up Truth Social. And they all smacked it away and said, nope. He's not about he wouldn't even do that for one of his kids.
I was going to say he wouldn't even do it for Don Jr. or Ivanka. Maybe, probably not Ivanka. No, it's all about him. I don't see. I mean, he just goes straight ahead. He's not going to do the bank shot.
And for Cruz and Rubio, is it the case that they are only able to exist because he allows them to, but they will never be able to rise up and oppose him, and they probably will not be able to take the crown if he puts it up for grabs, because then there'll be a shift and these guys will be called out for being craven?
Yeah, I doubt either of them run against him. I mean, there's a chance DeSantis runs against him, and that could be an interesting race, but I don't think he wins. And then, you could have a Christie, you could have a Liz Cheney, you could have, an anti-Trump or Kinzinger or someone like that. Which, it'd be a great debate to watch. I just don't think the RNC or Trump would allow himself to get on a debate stage with any of these people. And, then he'll just win.
People say the Democrats need to keep Trump out of their mouth and speak to the concerns of the people who voted for him and show that they are better than Trump would be for them. do something for those people, and then they won't have to make the desperate choice of being for a Trump. What do you think of that?
I think they can do both. I think Democrats could, I think they probably have a pretty good story to tell at this point. I mean, they haven't figured out a way to tell it. I mean, Democrats have never been particularly good at this. But no, I mean, I think Trump is a great asset for Democrats. In fact, he's arguably the best asset for Democrats. I mean, one of the few national politicians who's less popular than Joe Biden right now is Donald Trump, and not by a lot.
You think Biden runs again?
I mean, I don't think he should. But yeah, I do. I mean, that seems to be where this is headed.
Do you think he's in decline?
Yeah. I mean, I think when I'm at 79 years old, I'll be in decline too. Yeah, no, I mean, look at Trump side by side with, the interviews he did 20 years ago. I mean, it's clearly they're not as sharp. And, Biden, he made his biggest contribution to America on November, whatever the date was, 3rd, 2020, and he beat Donald Trump. And, he spared the country whatever that second term would have looked like, and he might be called upon to do it again. But yeah, no, he's not. I mean, look, he wasn't that great to begin with. I mean, there's a reason his 2 other campaigns were utter disasters. So yeah, I think he's in decline, but I don't know if the Democrats have anyone else.
Kamala Harris, she's been weakened.
No.
They're trying to bring her back now on Roe v. Wade. But she seems somewhat compromised by their own reckoning. I don't know why he wouldn't run again.
Yeah, I mean, it's not his job not to run. If he wants to run, he should run. And if he runs, he almost certainly gets the nomination.
Now, when I say that, I'm not saying you can't make a case against him running. I'm saying personally to him, why wouldn't he? He keeps saying, my intention is to.
Yeah, then I guess we should just take him at his word and take Trump at his word. I mean, I guess they'll both run, and I think if that happens, they'll probably wind up facing each other again.
So in reading this, this is a lens on those players and then how people got into what you call the graft game here. The graft game suggests, obviously, making money off the situation. But you mean it in a little bit more of an expansive sense than just pay for play, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the Trump Hotel. I mean, we called it the Paola Palace. We called it. I mean, there was any number of, the literal grift of like Rick's American Cafe and Casablanca. I mean, there was a lot of that going on. But no, I mean, there is something in it for these people. I mean, it is a pay to play in that people have tried to make Donald Trump work for him. And the way to do it is absolute sort of pathetic sycophancy. And that's the play.
Do you think we're making a mistake calling it Trumpism and giving him ownership of a sentiment, an outrage, a disaffection that he did not create? He probably aped from what he was taught by Tom Tancredo and Steve King when he went out and spent some time with those guys. But is it a mistake to put it all on his shoulders when really he's just become an agent of it for this group of people?
He has, but he put a touch on it. I mean, there's something distinctly Trumpist about it, obviously, because it takes every aspect of his personality. It's not conservatism, by the way. I mean, the idea that like people describe like Trumpers as like, oh, these are the arch conservatives of the party. I mean, this is not conservatism as you and I know it. I mean, family values, free trade, anti-Russian. I mean, go down the list, right? It's basically doing what you want to do and not being told, and just don't tell me what to do. I'm going to do what I do. And if it's wrong, screw you. I mean, that's Trump, right? And, I've personally never been terribly compelled by that, but I can see why he would be, or why people would be. And so, yeah, in a way, the cult of personality analogy you keep hearing is totally appropriate because that's sort of what it is.
I want that not to be true, not because I'm against Donald Trump. I always feel like, I always wave away any criticisms like that. One, they're usually just made out of convenience.
Mm-hmm.
But also it's that people have to really overcome a high hurdle with me for me to have a personal opinion of them. I'm high on indifference when it comes to people.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that.
And it's like, I really have a big dose of, well, I don't give a shit what that guy says. Like most of the time, I don't mean that with reference to the former president. You got to care what he says about you because it's going to change your lifestyle. But I don't like that it's true because I think that we are sacrificing a really important look at what's going on in the country and what we need to get to a better place. I don't think that you're getting rid of Trump. I don't think you're that move away from making the country better. I don't believe that.
I would
And I
agree.
don't
Yeah.
mean this, and please, everybody, just forgive me if it's not a good enough analogy. But when we were going after Osama bin Laden, and I was spending an unusual amount of time in Pakistan and all these other places, the thing that they would always say is, you get rid of him, there'll be another guy. And okay, is there another guy? Yes. Al-Zawahiri and other guys, but are they as charismatic or is they as meaningful a symbol as OBL was? Probably not, but it does go on. And I think that's probably true here. No, I don't believe that people who voted for Trump are terrorists or bigots or prejudiced. Some of them are. And that's not unusual, but most overwhelmingly are not that, in my opinion. And I know many on the left don't like to hear that. But I'm just saying it shouldn't be about Trump because I think it's much bigger than him. I think he was an opportunist. And, bravo to him because that's politics.
Right.
But I don't think you get to a better place if you make it about him as much as the Democrats have. You may win. And that's why they funded those extreme candidates in those primaries to give themselves the weakest challengers, which really pisses me off in terms of making themselves the better party.
Right.
But I think it's got to be about more than him.
Well, first of all, there will be another guy. There always is. There always will be. And there'll be another expression or someone trying to channel the expression of that, dissatisfaction, anger, whatever. I mean, what's interesting is that, like, the Democrats, a guy like, say, Fetterman in Pennsylvania, he has something that's kind of original and new. He's a different kind of Democrat personality. He dresses funny. He's tall. He's weird looking. He's extremely, when he's at his peak, and he's not now because he's still recovering from the stroke, but he's got an interesting rap and an interesting story. Republicans will figure out a way to vilify him like they did Obama, like they do Biden now. Look, Democrats are not great at selling whatever their story is. There's no question about that.
I think you got to change the game. I think as long as it's me versus you, there's too much temptation in you versus me. As long as it's allowed in the game, and it is, for you to say, he's just a bad guy. He's a bad guy. And okay, yeah, you got me. Leibovich didn't pay his taxes. Okay. Cuomo's worse. And here's why. And okay, yep, you don't like my position on this. Okay, true. But this guy did all it. It works too well right now.
Right.
For you to try to come and make a case about why you're better. People, it should resonate. It should work.
Right.
But there's something energetically, there's something emotionally, viscerally that doesn't allow advantage for somebody saying we can be better than this to overwhelm the way if you let this guy in, bad things are going to happen.
Right.
He will take this, he will change that, and this will be. That works better, especially in a binary situation. What's your thought about what you do in that circumstance?
Well, first of all, it is harder to do that in a Senate race, but I take your point. I think that in a situation like that, you just have to fight like hell. You have to say, this is bullshit. And maybe you don't say bullshit, but you say something real.
I actually think you're right, by the way. I think you don't say bullshit anymore. Even I've had people say to me, I love what you do, brother. You don't need to curse like that. And I've actually been pulling back on it because, I guess I felt that it was okay now for me to speak the way I do when I'm on the dock with my buddies.
Right.
And we should be better. If you want to be better in every way that you can. So one, you're right. You don't say bullshit. You should find a more eloquent way because you're trying to make the case that we're better. Continue.
Yeah, say BS or whatever it is. But look, get mad. Just talk every day in a press conference, like just yell at the guy. Say this isn't true and this is why. This is why you're playing to the order. And just get out there because when you're being attacked, for better or for worse, you have an audience. But look, just fight back. Because what is being hurled at you is not in good faith. It's not fair. It's not 100% true. Look, the private conversations that are going on now, I know because I had them when I was reporting the book. I've never in all my years of reporting seen a bigger gap between what politicians say to me, and you probably had the same experience, say privately and what they say publicly. Obviously a public person
makes you crazy, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And if I could burn them, I'd burn them, right? It'd be probably sell better than it even did. But I can't do that. But there's enough there and enough truth comes through when you interview these people that if you listen to it, you can find the truth even if people don't know they're being inflammatory. So, when Lindsey Graham says, look, I just want to be relevant, that to me speaks volumes. Okay, relevant. At what price relevance, right? So if you're a John Cornyn who was just reelected 2 years ago, like just sort of not a regular Republican senator, why not just be the guy who says, yeah, this is wrong? And by the way, President Trump shouldn't be throwing around racist slurs at my friend Mitch's wife here. And good for hypothetical John Cornyn. Now, is that going to happen? No, because then everyone will be like, hey, be quiet. You're just like, we got to circle the wagons now, and that's what we do. And also Trump would get triggered, and then we'd have another 4 days of you going back and forth, and you'd get a nickname, and he'd be mean to you. And my God, how scary is that? So look, we know where this is going to lead, but I don't know. If it were me, I would.
Tommy John underwear. I didn't wear them. I thought they sounded like rednecky or something. Then I gave them a try because I used to hear the ads when I was doing radio all the time. And a few of my buddies were like, oh yeah, Tommy John. And I was a Stance guy, no more. I tried Tommy John underwear. It's better. Why? It's better material, better waistband. Love the flap location. A lot of these underwear don't have flaps anymore. That's crazy. Maybe it's just me, but I don't want to have a search party every time I got to go to the bathroom. Listen to this copy they gave me. Fall is chaos in your pants. You're overheating 1 second, freezing the next. To be ready for anything, you need underwear that can handle everything. It's time for Tommy John underwear. I love the copy. I wish I had written it. But I'll tell you what, I'm wearing it now. I'm wearing their running pants right now. They work for me. And I'm definitely going to expand. I also have their shirt, but the running pants are awesome. The underwear, awesome. And it's not about me, obviously. You've heard about Tommy John. There's a reason they have 18 million pairs sold. They don't have customers. They have fanatics, they say. Now, I don't know if I'm there yet, but I'm definitely wearing them. In fact, I got their pants on right now. So everything that they do is backed with the Tommy John best pair you'll ever wear or it's free guarantee. That's cool. I'll give you an insider tip. A lot of people don't exercise that kind of option, but it's really cool for a company to offer it. Now, you can go to TommyJohn.com/CCP right now and you get 20% off your first order. 20% off your first order. TommyJohn.com/CCP. I'm like reading that because I'm like, shoot, I just ordered all this stuff. 20% off. I didn't even get that and I have my own offer. Shoot. TommyJohn.com/CCP. Be smarter than me and get 20% off. So what happens to change where we are right now? And let me just add one fact to the question. One fact is that the fringes are on the decline. Social media aside, where, not you, but I'll actually take some of the blame for this, where people in the media use social media as a proxy for Vox Populi, and it isn't. It is magnified fringes, but they are on the wane. The biggest growing number in the electorate are people who don't want to be part of either party. So the majority of the country, and probably about 2/3 of the country, doesn't really want to play this game that they've become a little bit conditioned to / obsessed with watching. Right. That's a good fact. So given that fact, what changes this?
I'm going to say something that probably would be mocked if I said it. I don't care. Let them mock it. People mock Joe Biden all the time, especially on the left, but also on the right, for all of his kind of kumbaya, like coming together rhetoric. I mean, he was getting all kinds of heat yesterday from the left, like, oh, he's standing with Ron DeSantis. He said he's doing a good job after this hurricane. And I'm sure DeSantis, I haven't checked, but I'm sure DeSantis got some blowback for appearing with Biden. And, they had a nice little photo op. And, Biden has not really unified the country like he said he was going to be. But I think it's great to have a president that tries and that continues to try and talks a good game. And remember during the 1/6 hearing, like a few months ago, one of the Oath Keepers, one of the guys who got arrested, he testified, and it was kind of a sad but compelling testimony. And then he immediately went up to the cops there afterwards, that who were attacked, or the Capitol Hill police, and he just hugged them, or he shook their hands. And everyone, there's a big cynical thing. Okay, he's trying to probably get a lighter sentence. His lawyer probably told him to do that. You can be cynical anyway to Sunday for that. I think those things are beautiful. I think moments of grace, even if they're politicians being graceful, are extremely important in setting and again, maybe I'm a sap here, but in setting the right kinds of example that, by the way, I mean, every time a hurricane or something like that happened for 4 years, one of the single worst things that Trump did is he just made everything worse all the time. There is a terrorist attack in London. Oh, let's have the president attack the Muslim-born mayor of London. I mean, God only knows. Throwing paper towels at the porter. I mean, whatever. I mean, that to me was just so, the other version of the word grotesque, right? I mean, I think it's a beautiful thing that we have a president, and it's a low bar at this point, but we have a president who tries and will continue to try. And maybe he's a sucker, but I think that's a good thing. And I think that that's the level of kind of baseline grace that we need to at least think about trying to get back to.
It makes me wonder, what is public virtue? What is good? I mean, everything that we say is good in politics is a function of holding somebody else down. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Right now, I mean, there's a perverseness here to the discussions we have. And it's like, are we about virtue? What are we about that's good? Well, we're about freedom.
Right.
Okay. But we seem to be exercising that only mean I have the freedom to hate and want to hold down and want to otherize anybody that I can. And it's just so weird in a place that is culturally Christian that there's just no place for it in the public forum right now of being a good man or woman and exercising virtue. It's not there. It's just nobody's exhibiting that because nobody's asking for it.
I mean, I think virtue is almost too high a bar. I mean, I would even just go for just decency. Be a good guy. I mean, believe me, I've been known as a cynic for years. The books I've written, the stories I've written, everyone's like, oh, Mark's just like the cynic and he writes, tough profile. I mean, whatever. I mean, I always, the older I've gotten, and maybe this is just me getting older, or living through Trump, or living through a pandemic, or seeing my kids grow up, or whatever it is, the power of extremely basic decency to people who deserve it, which is pretty much everyone. I was flying back from somewhere the other day. I had a flight delay in O'Hare, and I was sitting next to some guy in the airport, at the airport bar where we're watching, there was a football game on. What did we talk about? We talked about our families, our flight delay, and whatever game was on that. It was an Alabama game or something. Probably talked for about 20 minutes. He asked me what I do. I said, I wrote for the New York Times for 16 years, and I write for the Atlantic. And he's clearly a Trump guy. I could tell, by the way. He looked at me. We shook hands. We said, all right, well, we won't talk about politics. But, it was a fine 20-minute conversation between two Americans at the airport. And the conversation might not have gone to a good place if he said, I think the election was stolen from Trump. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't have engaged, I don't think. But look, to me, that's baseline decency. I don't care if you're a public person or a private person or a person walking down the street whatever, just do your best. I mean, I think, again, things like virtue and freedom are big and almost too complicated concepts because they're too subjective.
Yeah, I hear you. They sound highfalutin too. I totally get it. It's also why I'm not cut out, for running for office. But, I talk to so many, and I'm really lucky in that I've taken the time to distance myself from social media. I mean, I'm still there. I'm on social media. But I realized, a while ago that there is a disconnect. And I'm playing to the echo chamber within the fringe fold because that's what cable news is. And that's where I was. That's what I was being judged. That's where my competition is. That's what resonates. Those are the people who are watching. And boom.
Right.
But it really does seem to me that if we could get to a place where we say, just apply the rules and standards that you do everywhere else in your life, your fantasy football league, your weekly poker game, the people that you spin with and then go to lunch after or whatever, your parenting, your friend group, your coupling or thrupling or whatever you do.
Right.
Those standards don't make politics and government subject to a different set of rules. It's just, if you're full of it, then I don't really trust you on a regular basis. And if I screw up and I come to you and I say, look, man, it's not what you think it was, but I am sorry that it was anywhere close to what you think it was.
Right.
And I'm sorry, man. I shouldn't have done anything like that, even though I didn't even do what you think I did.
Right.
And that you then have the ability to say, okay, let's keep going with what brought us together in the first place, as opposed to, now I got you. And now you're not part of the group anymore and I win.
Right.
Let's do that. And that was one of the things that kept coming back to me when I was reading your book. Thank you for your servitude, Mark Leibovich. And in the book, you'll see that people keep making the decision in this really cool, a lot of you are going to be listening, but to those of you who are watching, you see the cover, which is a really cool illustration, by the way, of all of these different faces in the game. Reminds me a little bit of the mosaic that's behind the guys, Will Bond and the other guy.
Yes,
Pardon the interruption.
Kornheiser, yeah.
Of how these people all kind of just keep making the worst choices. Now, I say worst, but that's a defined term. They are the choices that you make to stay in a position of influence and access to Donald Trump within that party, within his term of power as president, and even beyond. And I just kept thinking to myself, they could just have decided, you know what? I'm not going to go out of my way to be the Cornyn that you depict.
Right.
I'm not going to die on this hill because nobody's coming with me and nothing better is going to happen. But I'm not going to do it either, and I'm going to say that. And I'm going to vote the way I would normally vote. And I would say kind of like a bunch of Joe Manchins on the right. Because I subscribe to the theory that Joe Manchin sucks at playing team ball for the Democrats, but he has not changed his politics and he is not a coal baron. This is who the guy has always been. And the party is now in a position where they can't work with the other side. But Joe Manchin, that's all he's ever done. And he's never been about the kinds of things they want to do now anyway. They just don't make that choice to make the moves that they would make in anything else that they do in their lives. Business, friendship, romantic, parenting, family. Totally different set of rules and standards. Why does it have to be?
No. Well, in some ways, I mean, it's set up. Like if Donald Trump had a boss, if he had a board, if he had stockholders, he would have been out of that job in a week, 2 weeks or something, or a few months. I mean, Charlottesville, certainly. But, the oversight of the American electorate in its entirety, voting every 4 years, makes you pretty much bulletproof. All they can do is impeach and convict you, which never happens. I mean, they impeach, but the conviction threshold is too high in such a partisan Senate. So, in Nixon's case, you had a level of shame that even Nixon, fell to, and he resigned. He walked away. That wouldn't happen today. He'd have had Fox News on his side. He'd have had he had a completely complicit Kevin McCarthy, Lindsey Graham. I mean, the reason Nixon left is because you had, Barry Goldwater and a bunch of elder statesmen Republicans
said, we're going to go bad on you. I mean, that's why. I mean, not to disrespect his decision, but it's easier to say you're going to resign when we say if you don't resign, we're going to vote you down and it'll probably lead to a prosecution.
Right. I mean, exactly. So, but that's, again, these were different times. I don't know what Nixon would have done today.
Well, he wouldn't have had the options because
he wouldn't have had the options.
For Trump to say that anything that they say or do is illegitimate.
Right.
Everything they say is true isn't. And only I am telling the truth. And every operation of government is corrupt. We weren't there when Nixon was in power. A lot of this stuff is a process of devolution. And it was ripe for when Trump wanted to do it. Had Trump won against run against Obama, I think Obama would have spanked him because
Probably,
the country
yeah.
was coming off Bush, which was bad enough for them once we
Yeah.
all kind of realized that Iraq wasn't the place to go. Although it's amazing how often I still hear people on the right, Ari Fleischer will contact me every once in a while and say, hey, it was good information, by the way. The weapons of mass destruction. I mean, that was real stuff there.
Really?
Something for you to pursue, perhaps. But the idea that he would have been effective then, no, you needed Obama because it gave some heft to the white fright. I have guys who voted for Trump who will say to me, and this is an interesting thing for you guys to do on your own. I don't know that you should judge it the way my friend does, but he says, let's watch some commercials and see how often you see white people versus when you see brown or other kinds of ethnic people. And I said, okay. So we watch. And I was like, all right, there's a white guy. And there's a white lady. Okay, there's a brown one. This one is Asian, is whatever. I don't know what that person is. And he's like, yeah, all right. Yeah. And I said, and what's your point? He says, this country's over 50% white, I said, yeah. And he said, so then shouldn't the commercials, isn't it okay if over half the people are white? I said, yes, in a fair world, you would see people on TV that reflect your makeup as a society. But the corrective process in American culture is often pendular and goes farther in the direction of correction maybe than you need, so that you'll see less than half the people are white now and more are black and Asian and Latinx or whatever it is. There's more diversity because that's how we correct. And you overcorrect. And then it will come back to a baseline. And I don't love that, but that does seem to be the way. But this is a reasonable guy, by the way, and not a Trumper, is embarrassed by Trump. He's your typical, I'm a fiscal conservative, social liberal. But he does skew a little bit more to the right, more he's aged and gotten more into his own opinion. But I think that the left's reaction to that is to not treat it the way you would anywhere else, which is to say, whoa, okay, I get why you feel that, but understand what we're trying to do here. Not trying to get rid of Leibovich and Cuomo. It's just, we don't want all Leibovich and Cuomo. That's all. Right. That's not how it comes from the left. It plays in to the right being able to make this a fear campaign, and then it changes the game, and you get into a situation that is unnatural anywhere else other than in politics. If it were a company, you wouldn't deal with it like this. If it were a school, you wouldn't deal with it like this. If it were a community situation, if it was a fishing club, you would not deal with it the way we deal with it in our politics. The question is, what do you think might be a catalyst to get people to treat politics the way they treat everything else?
It'd be good if we had models, examples. I think it's old fashioned, but I think, the sort of public gentlemanly decency that I don't know, that politicians used to exhibit as sort of a matter of course would help. But look, politics has become just sort of this blood sport. I mean, look, we've been saying this for decades, but I mean, Donald Trump sort of raised this to a level of, these are bad people, meaning our opponents are bad people. They are corrupt. They are sick. I mean, just think of the language everyone used. What did Marjorie Taylor Greene say the other day? And by the way, the continuum just keeps going down. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene could be...
They thought Steve King was bad for cantaloupe calves.
Exactly. Yeah, we cry out for the gentleman Steve King. But I don't know. I think I put a lot of the blame on the politicians themselves at this point. Yeah. And I think a lot of them try their best. They probably aren't bad people, but the Republican Party is the story here. And the story is continues to be those who prop up, really, really dangerous instincts.
Let me give people a flavor of a different part of your skill set. Do you have a favorite question or line of questioning in an interview?
I always like to ask, what's the most stressful part of your job? Which always gets people thinking. I mean, I think sometimes they'll answer quickly. They'll say firing people or not being able to sleep or something like that. But I'll even expand it. I'll say, what's the most stressful thing in your life? And that almost always gets to some kind of vulnerability, like that I might not measure up. If you're like in a sort of national security space or in a policing space, that something will blow up. So, I mean, there's that. But a lot of the times you get answers that go to self-doubt. Like, I don't know, maybe I'll lose. I'm terrified of losing.
And why do you like that?
Because I like it here. I want to be liked. And they don't say this explicitly. I mean, I think a lot of it is, I need this pin. I need my parking space. I get status out of it. I mean, I'm going to go home to Montana. What that question does, they say, I'm afraid of failing. I mean, they say it in so many words. I mean, and again, it takes them by surprise because, politics is not a game of vulnerability. See, when you talk about interviewing, by the way, and you probably have figured this out more than as well as anyone, I mean, you got to ask first of all, you got to listen, and then you got to ask quick questions. I mean, the worst thing I think a lot of interviewers do when you're like talking to a politician is you're shy and you're sitting with Donald Trump and you say, Mr. Trump, isn't it true that, and he's just boom. You just like, who was on? Rick Scott was doing a horrific job on, I guess it was CNN the other day, trying to defend the Mitch McConnell, Elaine Chao thing. I don't know if you saw this, but
No.
I think Dana Bash said, are you okay with that? I don't know. I mean, I just like quick, take them by surprise. And you see the moment where they just like, gasp, right? Or there's always that moment. And if you're writing about it, you can describe it. So another question, I always ask how much people sleep because they often lie about it. I mean, say, I sleep 4 hours a night. No one willingly sleeps 4 hours a night, at least that I would want to be friends with. But to me, that's a window. Like I sleep 6 hours, but I would like to sleep 7.5 hours, but I always wake up a couple times and I can't get back to sleep. But I don't know, it's a window into the soul. What else? What's a part of your life where you have struggled? Because that always, if you're like talking to like Mr. or Mrs. Smooth and they're 55 years old and, they're at the top of the hill and they're going for they'll say, well, I've gotten people came out of nowhere saying, there were times in my marriage when my wife and I were fighting all the time and we went to counseling. I mean, I didn't expect that. So, if you get them to sort of go to a vulnerable place.
Why is vulnerability a good thing to get out of a subject?
Because you get more honesty that way and you see them more. I mean, vulnerability is it's kind of it's the flip side of exposure. But no, I like vulnerability because otherwise you get artifice, right? Otherwise you get people protected in their armor, and vulnerability is where we live as human beings.
I guess why I would direct people to profiles that you do and to this book, and certainly This Town. That's a great book. That was #1 bestseller. Although I can understand why Leibovich needed to write this book, because the one that he made up, the town that he made up, was really a victim of its own creativity because it can't match up to the reality. I'll tell you that right now. You don't use negativity as a proxy for insight. My experience is that most profiles, you do a profile of so-and-so, and it's, this woman is really smart, really strong. She did this really well. And listen to this struggle she said that she had. And it's really cool that she says that, she's not really done with that yet. And she really wishes that this could have been different. Really, she's doing the right things at the right time. People are like, Leibovich, what a loser. What a softball. What a puff piece.
Right.
But even if it is clearly beyond the reasonableness of what you could have ascertained in the conversation that you had, you smack them around. The negativity is a proxy for the insight. And people will say, now that was a good profile, boy. Leibovich really came at him or her. And I think that's part of the problem. And I think it's part of human nature, but it's also about something that we try to course correct everywhere else in our life. I mean, how many times have you said to your kids or somebody, that you're like kind of trying to help be better? Hey, man, you can run her down all you want. That doesn't make you better, by the way.
Right.
And, if you have nothing nice to say, maybe you should just shut your mouth, and just do your homework because your teacher's not your problem. Whatever the situation is. We don't do that in our politics, and our media doesn't do it either.
No, I think that's 100% true. Like, look, no one, I wish there were a how-to guide in all these jobs. There just isn't. I mean, I think what the best people do is a little different, right? It's a twist. It's original. It's smart. It's something that rises above Chris's threshold of, what was the word you used before? The threshold of indifference. By the way, have I gotten above the threshold of indifference?
That's why you're on the show, brother.
All right. Yes, that should be the name of the podcast. The rising up. It's too long, but no, I like the idea though of a threshold of indifference, because I have a very solid.
Well, you need to have it if you're going to do a job where you're going to put yourself out there, and this is much more true for me than it is for you. Although, you can see Mark a lot. He's on cable TV and he does a lot of, he does stuff. He's out there, but you're not asking people every night, tell you how they like your face, or whatever the BS.
Thank God for that.
No, you kidding? You're a huge star. Rugged good looks. You have to be able to hold some of it off. And I'll tell you what, the tricky part is not having the indifference towards criticism. And criticism, not, again, in the classical sense of the word, which would be balanced. Now critical only means negative. And by the way, the pushback for when they call you a cynic, you should say thank you. Because Diogenes is a very big influence in my life. And cynicism, as he developed it, was not just, I think everything sucks. It wasn't pessimism.
Right.
It was, I'm going to stand one step outside and tell you what I see in the rest of all of you that you should examine. And I think it's a great thing. It's that you have to not listen to the shine the same way either, because the shine is as corrupting an influence as the sour. And it's easier to say, and everybody's a hater. The haters are going to hate. That's easier than, you know what? I get that they like this, but I got to look at it. I get that they say this was good, but I have to look at it. And how do I feel about what I did here and how I did? That's much harder. And that took me a longer time. And I have tons of built-in advantages. I grew up being examined from the age of 12. That's when Pop became governor. We went from just another Italian middle-class family in Queens to all of a sudden I'm in the mansion, And everybody, thinks you're special all of a sudden. And so I have some advantages, but it's very hard. So the indifference for me is that, when people compliment me, 9 times out of 10, I'll say, thanks for the generous assessment, which is my way of saying, I'm not going to disrespect you for saying something nice to me. That's not kind. That's not good.
Right.
If it's bad, I'll listen to it. If it's good, I'll listen to it if it's at all substantive, But most of the time, I got to tell you, especially on TV, it's, the color you had on, what you project and all that kind of stuff. But it's a good standard to have in the business that we're in. I mean, like tonight, I know this will be dated, but whatever. I'm interviewing Tony Fauci. And here's my angle. I don't think Fauci's friends do him a favor of having him on and not giving him the opportunity to respond to what he is getting clubbed with like a baby seal everywhere else. I think that if you're my friend, you're going to tell me what they're saying. Okay? And give me a chance on a platform to answer it. And I'm not talking about petty personal shit. I'm saying this is what they're saying. They're saying that you absolutely funded and wanted to do research on this stuff in Wuhan. And I think you should answer it like completely and once and for all answer it. And I'm going to do that. Now, I happen to like Tony Fauci. I happen to have grown up knowing Tony Fauci. I happen to have grown up raised by a man who helped get Tony Fauci into public medicine. And my father worked openly and in a big way with Tony Fauci on HIV/AIDS in the 80s in a very big way. And it was very big for Tony, big part of his legacy. So I am absolutely not impartial. Right. And I think that's going to motivate me to ask him questions that I guarantee you did not hear in his last 6 appearances on television, because he's winding it up and he should get the chance. Now, I will get attacked. People will say, see, this is what he's doing. See, now he's attacking everybody because he's mad. He's mad about what happened to his brother. He's mad about what happened to him. So he's beating up on Tony Fauci. Now, I don't think it'll come across that way, but I've also made a big decision, which is I am not doing the shows anymore for the same people. I'm really trying to get the people who aren't watching. I'm really trying to get the majority of them to see. I'm asking exactly what you people talk about when you do talk about this stuff in your own lives.
Right.
And I am treating things the way you think they should be treated when you watch the rest of us and are like, what is going on with these people? I'm playing to the disconnect. I'm living in that space, which is way harder, by the way.
Oh, it's extremely hard. Are you kidding? Yeah, no, I don't envy. I mean, it's a big job, but look, I'm glad you're doing it.
It'll be out on my social media and stuff. Nobody can find News Nation. I got to keep putting out this channel finder. I feel like doing an investigation of my own employer. They keep giving me numbers that their reach is as much or more as MSNBC and Fox, but not quite as much as CNN in terms of households. But all my friends keep telling me they can't find the channel. And I got a lot of buddies who don't watch MSNBC. They would never ask me what channel it's on. And I have a lot of friends who don't watch Fox, but they know what channel it's on. So I have to get over that hurdle. Listen, brother, I'm not going to take any more of your time, but I will say this. I would love to have you on the TV show. You're always welcome here, and not just to push a book. I'm happy to push your books. And I'm trying to create a salon effect of people who understand the game but don't play the game, who aren't just, pissing on everybody else, but helping people understand this is why it is what it is. Those are my two phrases. It is what it is, which I think is one of the most great things in thought, even though I don't really know what it means, but I say it all the time. And the only question that matters is why.
Why?
And
exactly.
It's the only question. It's not my favorite question, though. My favorite question is, what was the hardest thing for you in this emotionally, especially for men?
This, you mean? Like
anything. When I'm interviewing somebody, and if it's a man especially, what was the hardest thing for you in this emotionally? As a TV question. I don't believe in a single question that is an ignorant supposition. It's about a line of questioning. It's about a conversation for people to get people into a place of openness and candor. So anyway, Mark Leibovich, the book is Thank You for Your Servitude. I will show it for those who are streaming and watching his pretty face. You can get it anywhere. I do suggest that you read This Town also, because the contrast of what was reality versus being stranger than fiction is really stark. But he talks about what you think you know in a way that you haven't heard it before. Mark Leibovich, I appreciate you, brother. Continued good work, and thank you for helping me.
All thanks to you, and we will see you again. I'd love to come on again.
Brother, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much for watching and listening. Mark Leibovich, I told you he was really smart. He's been following the game for a long time, and it's really interesting to get the insights about what we need to expose. Please remember to subscribe and follow. Don't forget your free agent merch. And you can call, right? 516-412-6307. You can leave a comment, and I will take your listener calls by the batch and get back to you. Keep spreading the word. I'll see you here, and I'll see you here soon. Let's get after it.